Hello and welcome to our today's interview. Today we have with us General Secretary of CPIM, Sitaram Yechury. We welcome you. We will discuss today on the political situation of our country, the left movement and its prospect. But let us start with the latest development in our apex court on the sedition law. You have already stated immediately after the verdict that CPIM wants complete abolition of the law, the colonial law. But do you think that this verdict will give a breathing space to those who are vocal against the government?
Well, the Supreme Court went halfway through, but it's good it went at least this far, because the Modi government's tactics always under such situations has been to try and seek a postponement, and through that process of postponement they would like to eventually to retain these draconian measures. If you recollect, only when the Supreme Court came down heavily on the vaccination program, that they were forced, Modi was forced to actually do a partial, if not a largely universal free vaccination. Otherwise, it was not the policy of the government. Again, when the question of compensation for the deaths of the COVID, unfortunate deaths due to COVID came, the government was reluctant, but under Supreme Court pressure, they were forced. Now, under Supreme Court pressure, the government said that we should review and re-examine. Now, review and re-examine does not really satisfy, because what that means we do not know. Like the change of POTA, which was repealed by the UPA, into the UAPA, has resulted in this. So that is a very dangerous area. The only way is actually to abolish the Sedition Act. This was brought in, like you said, by the colonial rulers to suppress our national movement, freedom struggle. It was used against most of our leaders then, including Mahatma Gandhi, Tilak, etc. But it was retained post-independence, but we have been always saying that it has no place in an independent democracy and a secular republic like India. So it should go. But Supreme Court has gone halfway through, saying that now they put a stay on all the cases that are pending. They said they cannot be proceeded against, no new FIR should be filed, and they given a date in July after the vacations. Till then, there is respite, and all those who are in jail now under Sedition Act can apply for bail. So that is definitely a very welcome breathing space that is given. But we only hope that in July, when it starts hearing, that they'll go the full way and actually abolish this law.
The Union Law Minister Kiran Rijiju, he already reminded about the Lakshman Rekha. So do you apprehend about the intention of the government?
That is very clear what the intention of the government is. The Lakshman Rekha actually applies to the government. The executive has no business to exceed or cross the Lakshman Rekha, which is the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India guarantees the equality for all citizens. It is this executive, this Modi government, which is denying that equality to our religious minorities, particularly the Muslims. The equality guaranteed by the Indian Constitution also comes with the question of fraternity and liberty. Constitution gives the right for religious minorities to practice and propagate their religion. But these are all violated by whom? By the central government. So who's crossing the Lakshman Rekha? It is the central government that's crossing the Lakshman Rekha, and they should mend their ways. And that is what the Supreme Court is telling them.
On one hand, when we are discussing about this democratic right to dissent, on the other hand, we are experiencing economic crisis, sufferings of the people, hunger, poverty, joblessness. Some people are trying to show the reason as the international crisis, the Ukraine war, etc. But do you think that these are the real reason, or there are government's policy decisions, their activities are the major reasons. What do you think?
Well, the major reason is the policies being adopted by this Modi government. Because the economic slowdown, almost a recession, set in even before the COVID pandemic came. Before that, all the economic indicators were showing that Indian economy was actually in a downslide, very rapid downslide. The COVID pandemic and then this Ukraine war, both of them have added to this. They are not the reason. The reason is the policies that have been adopted by the Modi government, which is actually the development of a corporate communal nexus. The loot of India's national assets began before the COVID came, and that benefiting only a few of the cronies, and all of us know who are the major friends of our Prime Minister who are gaining from all these things. They are now the fastest growing billionaires in the world, and it is for them that the Indian assets are all being sold for a song. And this destruction is large-scale privatization, which began even before. That has led to a destruction of our productive forces, leading to a drastic fall in employment. Plus the question of trying to take over Indian agriculture and hand it over to corporate capital. That is the meaning of the agri laws. So the destruction of the Indian economy began well before the pandemic and the Ukraine. And the result is there for all to see. More than a half of our youth have stopped looking for jobs because there are no jobs. The labor force in the country, that is labor participation rate as they call it, that is declining. The youth are surviving either in the rural areas or somewhere else, but they're not looking for jobs. 9 crore plus youth today are registered as unemployed. Regular jobs have been lost by the lakhs. More than 3 million they say have lost. Government refuses to give correct information and data. Data fudging by the government, Modi government, this is the worst government we have as far as data is concerned. On everything, from employment to hunger to poverty, and including COVID deaths, everything the data is fudged. The net result is growing unemployment, growing prices. The escalating prices are primarily because of this government policy to earn more revenue by putting more taxes on petroleum products. So the petroleum prices keep rising, and that means a cascading inflationary impact because transportation costs rise. And transportation costs rise everything, from your vegetables to your fruits to everything that people consume, all essentials, the prices rise. And when those prices rise, already unemployment, already therefore growing poverty, and world hunger index is every year putting you down. We are in the last 5 in the world today, in the world hunger index. It's actually, you feel very, very ashamed in the sense that all our neighboring countries are above us, almost all, except say for 1 or 2 exceptions. So in this situation, the economic crisis and the destruction of Indian economy is solely on the doorstep of the Modi government and its policies. So all these excuses are just excuses. You have to today provide for employment, you have to today create jobs. That is possible. Instead of looting the national assets and giving concessions to the corporates. They have given massive concessions, tax concessions during the COVID year in the name of incentives for economic growth. They are giving concessions to the corporates so that they can borrow to invest. But the problem in Indian economy is people don't have money to buy. Even if a corporate invests and produces something, there's nobody to buy that product. Your automobile industries was supposed to be the engine of India's economic growth. Today, their production has been cut by more than 1/3. There are no buyers. All the companies are saying there are no buyers. Some of the international ones have closed shop in India. So the net result is that unless you increase people's purchasing power, how can you do that? You can do that instead of giving these concessions to the rich. If you save amount of money, if you invest in public investments, build our roads, build our infrastructure, build our irrigation canals, you will generate a large number of new jobs. Once these youth are employed, they start spending their wages. Then the demand starts growing. The economy can revive. So there is a way. But that way means lower profits for the corporate friends, which Modi does not want to do. He wants to appease the international capital and Indian big capital. He wants their support for what he is doing at home, destroying the secular democratic republic, in order to advance the fascistic Hindutva agenda of the RSS, which is what is a final objective. In order to do that, he requires the support of international and Indian big capital. So for them, the country is being looted and lives of the youth are being destroyed.
At this juncture, I want to mention the present condition of Sri Lanka. There is a turmoil and complex situation. Do you think that there are lessons from Sri Lanka that the India should adopt, that the India should take?
Of course there are. Very clear lessons are visible. There are writings on the wall. What was happening in Sri Lanka for the last 4 or 5 years has been actually, again, the dominance of majoritarian politics, Sinhala Buddhist groups, and their targeting of the Tamil minorities, and also the Muslim and the Christian that are there in Sri Lanka. Through that, they could mobilize and consolidate, like the Hindutva vote bank mobilization in India. They could mobilize and consolidate and win elections. But the result of that has been the economic ruination. And that is what you are seeing today in this entire turmoil.
We have seen your effort, the effort of the left parties to build united trade union movement. And the people of our country, they were encouraged seeing the United Kishan movement. But even after that, nothing could stop BJP from winning in Uttar Pradesh election, in the last spell of assembly election. How do you analyze it? Why this popular discontent is not translated in the voting machine?
You see, that is the important question which the CPIM has been articulating for some time, which we must understand. That what is happening today is while people's economic issues and problems and misery are growing, even in UP you will see where the Kisan movement had its impact, where the Kisan belt is there, where agricultural activities are there the BJP suffered. They won, but they won with a lesser number of seats. But they nevertheless won. Why? Because what is happening is that on economic livelihood issues, people are willing to come against the government. But they are being mobilized on the issues, on emotive passions, on the issues of Hindutva and the spread of hate and violence against the minorities. So they cannot be defeated only by big struggles on the economic issues of the people. It has to be a combined struggle against Hindutva as a whole, which includes these economic problems, which what we discussed so far. It's part of the Hindutva agenda, this corporate communal nexus. And at the same time, their entire ideological and the emotional appeal to the people on the question of Hindutva, that has to be challenged. Today, what is the Prime Minister talking about? Either you have the azans, you have halal meat, or you have the hijab. You have only, earlier it was Qabristan and Shamshan Ghat. For him, there is no other agenda except sharpen the divide. And then this is taken as a signal by all these private armies and mobs. Not a single word has the Prime Minister uttered against this calls for genocide against the Muslims. The Dharma Sansads, all their calls. Not one word from the Prime Minister. Not one word from the Prime Minister on the communal violence that was unleashed on Ram Navami and Hanuman Jayanti. Not one word from the Prime Minister on how the Muslims are being targeted by this bulldozer politics. But the only thing he will talk about is your azans, your halal wheat, and now your hijab, and all these issues which sharpen the divide between the Hindus and the Muslims. So that is their whole politics, the worst vote bank politics of consolidating the Hindu communal vote bank, Hindutva communal vote bank. And it is this politics, therefore they have to be challenged in a holistic manner. This Hindutva, the RSS's fascistic project of converting a secular democratic India into a Hindutva Rashtra has to be resisted politically, socially, culturally, apart from the economic struggles. And holistically, this has to be combated, and that is where all the secular forces will have to come together to realize that it is not piecemeal struggles. They are no longer piecemeal struggles, saying that this is neoliberal economic policies, this is communalism. They are all combined together into one under this government. And that is the Hindutva offensive. That has to be combated in a holistic manner.
So it is a struggle in multi-layer also.
Yes, multi-layer, and at the same time to understand economic struggles on economic issues, very important. As I said, wherever they were very strong, the BJP suffered, losing its quantum of seats. But they must be combined with the ideological struggle, the political struggles, so in the social arena and the cultural arena. And that is where they'll have to be challenged, saying that they are actually destroying the very inclusive concept of nationhood in India. That is where all these issues have to be combined together to mount the counter-offensive.
So you need to build a unity of the people also.
You need not only to build the unity of the people, you have to build a counter-hegemony to their idea of Hindutva fascism. The counter-hegemony has to be built in the cultural, in the political, in the social, in all these realms. The counter-hegemony has to be built. And that is a very, very urgent and important task. And that is what the CPM has decided in this last party congress, that this is the holistic manner in which we approach and mobilize the other forces who are willing to come for an alternative to this lot. And that is the alternative we'd like to build through a left and democratic front on all left and democratic forces.
Please explain to achieve this target, what will be the role of CPIM?
Well, the CPIM's role would be to build the broadest possible mobilization, forge the broadest possible mobilization of secular forces against this Hindutva offensive.
Which parties will be included in this?
It will be not only parties, it will be also forces. That's why I use the word forces. They are people's movements. They are various other streams of movements that are there. You have those who are championing the Dalit rights, you have those who are championing the minority rights. There will be all sorts of non-political party movements on these various issues. They also have to be brought together in the thing. So it will be all the political parties who are secular, who are committed to defeat them, plus all these other forces. And our role will be to be the catalyst to bring them all together.
Coming to the Bengal situation, Bengal issues, here in Bengal there is an attempt to create a binary between Trinamool Congress, the ruling party in our state, and BJP, and making the left as irrelevant. How will you overcome this problem?
The overcoming this problem is you have to focusedly concentrate on people's issues and people's problems, while consciously also explaining or creating in the people's consciousness that this is the game plan of this binary that is going on. Now we have seen where the issues of the people have been picked up, and on that movements have been built. Even in these by-elections you've seen the results.
Yes.
In some places you've seen how the BJP has been pushed into the third position. So that shows it's possible. So the possibility is only the way you break the binary is to strengthen your links with the working people in Bengal. The left has had very strong links, it has a very strong history, it has got a very strong legacy. That will all have to be revived, not in the olden, on the basis of older slogans, but they have to be revived in today's reality for the future. That is the way in which this binary has to be broken. And in the final analysis, the binary only means that they're not really capable of defeating the Hindutva offensive. We've seen this happen in many states. It starts as though in opposition to the BJP, but eventually BJP gains and that opposition actually just vanishes or disintegrates. So that is what people must realize, and therefore realize that the methods adopted by those who say that they are anti-BJP are methods that actually feed into the BJP, eventually strengthening the BJP. The anti-democratic methods, the expression of hate and violence, the question of competing communalism, all these are things which eventually feed into.
Do you indicate Trinamool Congress?
What was she doing on the Ram Navami? Your Honorable Chief Minister? What was the call of this Trinamool Congress? What is the call of the Honorable Chief Minister of Delhi on Hanuman Jayanti, reciting of Hanuman Chalisa? They think they are competing with them. But this competition eventually only feeds them. That has been the experience everywhere.
So you think that Trinamool Congress is not actually working to weaken BJP, but actually feeding them?
It may claim that it is anti-BJP. It may defeat the BJP in elections in constituencies. But the methods and the issues that it picks up eventually only feed the BJP.
So left is the only alternative?
Absolutely. Left is the only alternative, and the left has to be strengthened in order to bring Bengal back to its earlier glory.
Recently, the Indian Home Minister Amit Shah visited the state and he said that CAA, NRC, NPR agenda is still on and they will implement it. What is your take on it?
Why doesn't he say the same thing in Assam? He went to Assam recently. There he won't say it. Here he says it. That duplicity of theirs is known. Right at the beginning, CPM had been saying the CIA, and while we resolutely oppose this, we think this is anti-constitutional. Constitution does not define Indian citizenship on the basis of religion. So this is something which cannot be accepted, and we reject it. But then at the same time, we also warn that they only use this to sharpen communal polarization. Today you had some hundreds of Hindus who had come in from Pakistan, in Rajasthan, who ultimately had to go back to Pakistan. Why didn't they accept them as the citizens? So this duplicity, it's not really to help any people who are religiously persecuted. It is actually an instrument to instrument to seek sharpening of polarization. So that is what he wants to do, and which is what their agenda is.
My last question is on the students and youth movement. Presently, the All India Conference of DYFI is being held here in Kolkata. But how important you consider these students and youth movements and this generation for the left movement to build the fight against BJP? And how will you incorporate this young generation in your fight?
Well, it's not only for the CPM, for India. This generation is important because they will define what will be the future of India. They are India's future. Our generation will go, but they will inherit this India. So how they want this India to be, they have to decide. They will shape. So there the youth and student movement are very important in shaping India in a correct manner on the basis of what the freedom struggle gave us, which is this secular democratic republic with this constitution. So in that sense, the student and the youth movement are very, very important because they are the bedrock on the basis of which the future of India will be determined, and therefore their own future also. If they want better livelihood conditions, these policies have to change. If they want better conditions of social harmony and unity and integrity in the country, these policies have to change. So unless you oppose and defeat these policies of this Hindutva, fascistic Hindutva agenda, unless you do that, you cannot really save India to begin with and then change India for the better. So the youth and students are the most important force because they are the future. Along with the other revolutionary forces in the country, that is the working class, the peasantry, the agricultural labor, the working people, the youth student movement has to play a very important role in actually carrying forward this struggle to save India and then to change India for the better. So our party will completely support these initiatives of the youth and students and to try and encourage it as much as possible so that they can realize India and realize India's potential. We have a huge amount of potential that is today being wasted by the policies of this Modi government. That has to be prevented and reversed.
Thank you for giving us so much time, and thank you